the culture we live in, and for a lot of people, it's a scarcity culture. It's like this culture of never enough.
Mm,
Um,
love that.
and like you said, these people are living great lives. Great lives. They've got food, they've got hot water. We've got heaps of things to be grateful for. But are you grateful for where you're at? Like, people are on this hamster wheel of just wanting more, 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 more because they think that that's what's going to define their happiness. Like a bigger house, a bigger
Mm,
car. And like, yeah, they're nice things to have. And if you're in a situation where it's like you can get it, go for it. Like, I don't care. I'm not saying you need to have this small, economy efficient little car to be happy. Like it, I'm just saying that be grateful for where you are.
yeah.
Um, because it's like this anxiety we see like social media, and these people are living these glorified lives. It's like, and we glorify bloody how people live and what people look like, and you think that you have to be that when you don't.
Mm,
Like, and it's such a trap because people just like, and I feel like never enough is like feeling shame. Like, that's like genuinely one of the definitions of shame. It's like
mm.
feeling less than or never enough.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Couple of Lattes with your host, me, Jacques Massey. I'm on a mission to give people wings and roots, and Couple of Lattes is a podcast designed to offer simple solutions to your perceived problems, empowering you to take charge of your life. Couple of Lattes brings powerful conversations with some of the most insightful people in the world straight to your ears. You can listen to new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on your chosen podcast platform, and you can even watch it on YouTube. Anyway, time to create some purpose and find some meaning in your life with this episode of Couple of Lattes. Kia ora, team, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation with the powerful, the legendary Coach Jordan Love. Jordan is a strength and conditioning coach, but he's also an all-round absolute legend. And anyone who's listening to this who has joined in with Jordan on Hey Mate, which is an amazing group for men, you would know exactly the same thing. He's a powerful human being. He shows strength, resilience, and stoicism, but he's also got that vulnerable side, and he's able to sit down with someone, have a deep conversation with zero judgment. In today's episode, we dive into intent. We dive into this idea of expectations, specifically the expectations we have of ourselves that we perceive others to have of us. Confusing, I know. And we also dive into victim mentality and how dangerous it is when you essentially want to achieve anything. Victim mentality holds you back. The more you can feel as though you are the oppressed, the less likely you are to actually do anything about your situation. So we dive into that, diving into Jordan's own story, his own personal struggles with chaos and suffering. And it's an incredible podcast. The first that Jordan has been on, and I'm sure it's only going to be the first of many. This is a man to watch. He has a power to him, an aura to him, and I'm so pumped that I got to sit down and have this conversation with the powerful, the legendary Jordan Love.
How was your morning? What did you get up to?
Yeah, it was good, bro. Woke up early, did my standard rituals, so cold shower, meditation.
Yeah.
Went for a bit of a stroll. My foot's a bit buggered, so I haven't really been able to run.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
What happened to it?
it's just overuse and not enough stretching. There's no one that I can really blame apart from myself. So,
Yeah.
but
Right, that's so grim.
yeah, it's not bad though. Like, it's getting way better, and the timing is good as well because I want to get back into the gym and get big again. Because right now I'm like a wispy cloud. And
Ready to blow away.
yeah, and I want to be
Ready
one of
to
those.
just dissipate.
Yeah, 100%. That's literally my body right now. So I'm pretty pumped to get to the gym,
Yeah.
which means my foot is going to get a solid rest, and I'll be able to build up the muscles again and condition my legs. Because that's part of the problem is there's like I'm just running all the time, but it's just abusing my legs. It's not actually strengthening them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's worst.
Which I suppose you know all about since you're a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, well, I always went like, I think the general, like, majority of people that want to do strength and conditioning will lean towards strength first, and like really neglect conditioning and
Yeah, right.
energy systems and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I think that's something that I have been getting better in, and like, I read a couple running books and stuff like that. But yeah, like, massive component.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, just being able to like take loads more than what you're gonna have to do in running, like, so it sets your body up for success, and like, and all things in gym are going to translate to better efficiency when you're running. Like,
yeah, right.
yeah, you're stronger, you can produce more power. You can produce more power, you can run faster.
Yeah, right. And I suppose you
Pretty,
have like more resilience, I guess, in the long distance too,
oh,
right? Like your muscles
like,
don't kind of give in and get injured as quickly.
so much resistance. Like, yeah, every runner should be doing strength training.
Well, bro, this seems like a pretty good segue. And is that your latte?
Yeah,
Yeah, you just picked it up. I had a latte this morning, but I've got a black coffee now.
nice.
It's close
I
enough.
used to drink black.
Yeah, I've put a little bit of butter in this one actually.
Good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like I don't know, I get really affected by caffeine, and I've
Yeah.
found like having that little insulating layer of fat around the caffeine molecules, it works for me. Whether it's a placebo and I just believe it enough,
Yeah.
but it tends to flatten out that I don't get that like huge spike of just like
Yeah. And
I'm
then
kind of
that
just
huge down, and you're like, oh.
It tends to flatten out a bit. So
Yeah.
which I suppose, like realistically, we don't really need coffee for. If we eat the right foods, it's probably going to give us that. But
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
coffee, and the podcast is called Couple of Lattes, so I don't really
Yeah.
want to change the name.
Yeah. So true. Couple of long blacks.
couple of OJs that could work.
Yeah. Couple of long blacks with a dash of butter.
Yeah, true. Anyway, bro, I mean, we're kind of segueing into it now. So, um, we talked a little bit just then about strength and conditioning. So I guess the first question I want to ask you, so to give people a little bit of context, because obviously we kind of know each other now. Like we met through Haymate. Shout out to Gabe. Big shout out to
Yeah.
Gabe. You're a legend, bro. And shout out to the whole Haymate crew, whoever's listening. Hey guys.
Huge.
Yeah. But anyway, you're a strength and conditioning coach. Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about that choice and what led you down that path? Because it wasn't always on the cards, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Early days in my family, I was sort of led in, like, on my dad's side. They're all nurses, pharmacists, doctors, physios, a couple of lawyers in there, a couple of surgeons. Like, they're all in the medical field, and I reckon pretty early that's what I thought I had to do, and so I convinced myself that that's what I wanted to do, and I was pretty adamant on that, and I was okay at school pretty early, and then
So you wanted to be a doctor, or
I wanted, yeah, well, really early I did, and then about 14, 15, I started to lean towards physio, and was pretty adamant on that for my whole schooling sort of thing. And I guess throughout school, my journey was a little bit different, because of my mental health, and I ended up like sleeping through half of three of my exams. So it was a point where I was really struggling, and yeah, I didn't get anywhere near the required ATAR, to get into physio, and I'm actually sort of grateful that I didn't, because if I had, like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, and I don't know what path I'd be on, and I really think everything happens for a reason. So my first year into uni, the only thing I really could do was a diploma of health science, and I was like, sweet, like, gets me an entry to Bachelor of Exercise Science, and then from there I can do my Master's of Physio. And then basically, like, almost immediately, I was like, nah, I want to be like a strength and conditioning coach. Like, I love the gym. I like helping people fulfill their potential, and yeah, a gym has always been a massive part of my life in terms of just helping me escape and just getting me grounded and let me be where my feet are. So it seemed only fitting that strength and conditioning was the pathway that I went down, and I'm here now. I spent a year interning at Geelong Falcons as part of uni, and my best friend is a really good athlete, and that sort of is always something I can look to and say, like, wow, like I can be training people like that, and that gives me a whole lot of inspiration. And yeah, where I am now is a strength and conditioning coach and a personal trainer, and I love what I do, so I'm stoked where I am.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. Congrats on that. And yeah, I mean, like the limited interactions we've had. This is the interesting thing, kind of a little bit off topic, just to start with, is the interesting thing about conversations and why I love podcasts so much is, like, even after we have this discussion, and we've already had a previous discussion and we've had some small interactions on Hey Mate, but the cool thing about this is that you actually get to know someone. And
Yeah,
most of the conversations you have in real life are just like, they're so superficial, and I think that's a lot of what Hey Mate is built around, right? It's like, oh, hey mate, how you going? Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good. But there's no real honesty and like transparency and truly
yeah,
deep conversation there, right? So yeah,
yeah,
I'm really excited to do this because I think I'm going to learn a lot more about you, and we're going to strengthen the connection, which is cool. But to
yeah,
get back on topic a little bit, um, you and I like talked previously about your schooling days, and obviously you've come from a family that's, I guess, outwardly looks like they're pretty successful, right? Like they're doctors, lawyers, what we all kind of tend to perceive as, success, or
yeah,
material success in a way. And this kind of let you fall into this, what you and I talked about this kind of fixed mindset that,
mm,
you kind of had the genetics already, like you were destined to become this physio or whatever it is that you had in your head you were going to be. And
yeah,
that coupled with, I guess, your challenges with mental illness, uh, kind of resulted in you not really doing the things you needed to do at school. So I was
mm.
hoping maybe you could expand a little bit on that. Do you feel like that was kind of the situation in school, and maybe how did you overcome that and move more into a bit more of a growth mindset?
Yeah. Well, um, I guess, like, in terms of that, like, fixed mindset, like, pretty early on, I knew I was smart. Like, I knew I had a lot of capacity and a lot of potential to learn and to be good at whatever I did. And obviously, like we said, because of my surroundings, I thought that was a place in the medical field with whatever profession that is. And um, I think I sort of let um, trying to fit in and to belong dictate my decisions, and I conformed to what I thought people wanted me to be, which was this prankster, bit of an asshole. Someone that, like, you think you want to be around when you're 12, 13, 14, but you look back on it now and you're like, that kid just, like, has definitely, like, the kid has underlying sort of issues at hand, and that was sort of that I felt like I didn't belong, and I didn't know who I knew who I was, but as I said, like, that belonging factor is what I let shape me. And
Mm.
then moving on later into school, I'd moved schools. Um, my mental health, yeah, it got really bad. I lost my dad when I was 15, 16. That was really hard. I've made some poor decisions, some really, really poor decisions, and um, I hit, like, the biggest low I could with my mental health, and that just transitioned from about year 9 to 12, and um, it sort of took my schooling with it and a fixed mindset. I just honestly thought I was never going to be any different, and that's one of the scariest things about mental health. Like, some days I'd put my head in my hands and just say, like, why am I like this? Is this ever going to change? And is it always going to be like this? And um, every day at school, I would just waste opportunities. Like, grow and learn. And yeah, it was really, really hard for me. And I suppose getting out of that didn't really happen until I sort of ended, like I was in a relationship and that ended, and I sort of decided that I didn't want my anxiety to sort of dictate the quality of my life anymore. And I was past my depression at that point, but I was just so overly anxious. My mind was sick all day. And yeah, I'd had enough because it was another person that I'd lost. And um, I just decided then and there that I wanted to be better. I didn't want to have to go through that anymore. And I wanted to be able to live a good quality life with mental illness. Like, people think that like they can't have a good life if they got a mental illness, but you can learn how to combat it and sort of that you have control over it. So yeah, that's where I probably shifted, and it's been a pretty big journey since, and I've learned so much. So it's been awesome.
Thanks for sharing that, bro. I didn't actually know that about you until now, so thank you.
No, that's okay.
It's always powerful to share those deep moments of suffering, I find. And this feels like a Haymate conversation, legit.
Yeah,
Feels like,
yeah,
and I think that's why that platform's so good, because it enables
yeah,
people to kind of release that negative energy, and once you release that negative energy, you give yourself a starting point, right?
yeah. Well, like you said before, and that's something I wanted to touch on. Like in everyday situations, you get the "how are you," but it's never like a "how are you" really.
Mm,
It's not a "how are you" that you feel that it's not like it doesn't have that psychological safety around it where you can say, "Hey, I'm actually not okay" on
mm,
some days if that's how you're feeling. And they're not conversation starters. Like it's like, "Yeah, good. How's work? Yeah,
mm,
good. How's the girlfriend? Yeah, good." It's not something like, "What's one thing that's made you smile today?"
mm,
Um, or like, "Just tell me one thing you're grateful for today."
mm.
Something like that just can open up a can of worms in a conversation, and there's sort of the questions that should be asked. And that's what Haymate's about, just having those meaningful conversations that we don't really get in everyday life, and then hopefully we can take them to everyday life and make someone else feel better.
Yeah, I totally agree, bro. Yeah, I feel like the fast pace that we normally live our lives, it makes those kind of deep conversations nearly impossible, right? So having spaces like this where you can actually have those deeper conversations and actually really process the things that are going on in your head is just so
Yeah,
invaluable. Like it's so invaluable. And
yeah,
I think that's why, podcasts like the Joe Rogan podcast, for example, are just growing exponentially in terms of how popular they are, because people more and more crave that more meaningful conversation,
yeah,
longer form conversation, not that shallow, hey, the weather's pretty good today. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? Like, are you just saying words because you feel you need to say words? Or
I know, well, and that's why I love like those sorts of podcasts and Haymate, because people feel like they can just speak their mind and speak authentically. Like when everyday conversation, you can feel like, what's this other person going to think of me if I say this, or what if I say that? And they just refrain from saying what they want to say sometimes, and sort of promoting those meaningful conversations. So all those platforms, things like this, are just awesome for people to just speak freely,
Mm,
because
mm.
you just get to see someone's true character, and it's so awesome to have conversations where you leave and you're like, wow, like that was so much better than a "hey, how are you?" Like,
Yeah,
um,
100%.
yeah, it all
And
just comes down to connection as well.
100%. And I think the same goes as well for when you listen to conversations like this. Is you kind of feel, like you kind of feel more engaged when people start having these deeper discussions, and then that kind of sparks something in you to have those deeper discussions in real life with other people that are close to you as well,
Mm,
right? And like I know, like I've noticed that from doing a couple of chats on Haymate, like I'll have deeper conversations with my friends and family, and also because of this podcast as well,
yeah,
um, but I wanted to unpack a couple of things, Jordan, that you talked about before. um, Obviously, thanks again for sharing that story. I think it's going to be powerful for anyone listening, especially people who are hiding those kind of their own personal stories, and,
mm,
and are kind of too afraid to acknowledge those moments. One of which stood out for me is, like you said, you kind of got to a point where you were like, all right, enough is enough, in a sense. Like you had
Mm,
such a low, and I think that's a really crucial point to touch on, because a lot of times, and we've talked about this before, it's really easy and convenient for the ego to fall into this kind of victim mentality. And it's not to say that there's actually legitimately people who are victimized out there, or oppressed, but there has to be a choice individually where you say, all right, enough is enough. I'm going to do something about this, regardless of how
yeah.
terrible things get. And you used an amazing example when we were first talking, Viktor Frankl, I believe it was. I was wondering maybe if you could touch on that, and maybe dive into the idea of, taking total extreme ownership of whatever's going on in your life, and how empowering that is.
Yeah. So, like, for anyone who hasn't read Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, he sort of had this opportunity because he was a psychiatrist and a well-known one. Um, and he either could have stayed with his family and been imprisoned, or he could have went to the United States where he was well known. He'd had the documents to say, "Sweet, you're right, let's go." And he chose to stay. He watched his family leave him, and um, he took accountability for his actions and just like let his sort of values dictate where he wanted to go. And he loved his family, and he didn't run off and let the ego go. And he stayed true to what he believed in. And it was so authentic. And like just reading that book, it was so like crazy.
Mm,
Um, and I suppose that it makes me think like all the time, because for anyone who says they want to be successful, or they want to do this, they want to do that, like, are you willing to make sacrifices for what you want? And if you want to be successful, are you going to be accountable for your actions? Like,
mm,
because every decision you make in life, and it's something that I always think about, is like you've got you've got many decisions, and whatever one you choose is going to either push you further away or closer to where you want to be. Um, and you've got to know that if you're picking the one that's further away, you can't say, "Why is this happening to me?" Like when you're not setting yourself up for success. So,
mm, mm.
um, yeah, everything comes down to the decisions you make, and are you willing to be accountable? Like, and Viktor Frankl was, and he lived a life that was crazy. Like he's
Let, let's
written a
just
book,
um
and
let's just talk about that a little bit, because like when was Viktor Frankl alive? Like what is it he actually had to go through? Because I don't think we've kind of actually discovered like who he was.
yeah. So, um, psychiatrist. I think the book was written in 1937, and he had to go through Auschwitz and stuff like that, or some of the concentration camps. And yeah, he was in prison, worked every day just to the bone, watched people die all around him, and
Mm,
he just he made it out, and none of his family did. Um, I think he didn't know a few family members that were in there, but he just held on to this hope. And it's like one of the biggest quotes from the book, but it's a man with um, a man with a why can bear almost anyhow. And
mm,
I hear it all the time. Like in Hey Mate, I've heard it. I see it everywhere. Like one of the biggest quotes, and it's just like that was his driving thing to get through what he had to go through. And every day he just had this. So the whole book purpose behind the book is like, what's your purpose, and this is how you can get through anything. Like,
mm,
and it just talks about his story and how he used this sort of this why to get through the how. And the
mm,
how was gritty. It was horrible, like one of the worst things the world's ever seen. Like, um, and he got through it. Like his
mm,
body stayed intact when so many others just like couldn't. And he legitimately cut it down to, what's your why? Are
mm.
you willing to suffer for where you want to go? And that's like one of the most powerful things.
It's even more powerful when you understand the context, and that's why I kind of asked you just then to go over it, because yeah, when we're talking about like victim mentality, it is so easy to fall into that trap. And like I've fallen into it before. And this is why I think it ties in a lot with this fixed
Hmm.
mindset, because when you have this perceived idea of who you are and all of these external things that define you as a success, and then slowly but surely those things are chipped away and chipped away and chipped away, you feel like that's you being chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. And that's the fixed mindset,
Hmm.
right? But like you say, when you have a why that is much greater than yourself, a purpose, I guess you could call it, then you can bear anyhow, which Viktor Frankl
Yeah.
shows. And I think, I don't know if this is 100% accurate or not. Maybe you can tell me, but he ended up actually consoling some of the guards in the camp, as well as some of the
Hmm.
people in the camp, which is
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
insane. It's insane that he was able to do that in that situation, and not only was his body intact by the end of it, which was somewhat out of his control, I guess, but his mind was intact at the
Yeah.
end of it. And like
Yeah.
what he saw, what he had to do, it's like it's insane.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a powerful way to it's powerful perspective, right? Because no matter how much suffering you go through, if you take that total accountability and that extreme ownership in those situations, and then dedicate yourself to some sort of why, you're going to be able to sacrifice those tough times to get to
Yeah.
the reward, because it's worth it. So I guess a
Yeah.
follow-up question for that would be, like, people might be sitting there getting caught up. Well, I mean, that's great. He had a why, and that's making excuses, right? Like, oh, he had a why, so he could get through it. But I don't have a why, so I need to sit here and wait to find my why, which I think is bullshit. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone needs to sit and wait to find a why. But I
Yeah.
want to I want to get your perspective on it. Do you think that people need to have a purpose before they can start taking actions?
No, I think having having a purpose is going to help you every day, in terms of being driven. And if you're feeling like, I know for me, on the days where I'm feeling really down and stuff like that, I feel like I'm lacking a bit of purpose.
Mm,
I'm lacking a bit of why. So I sort of mope around and I've sort of got to get back on track. But if you want to succeed, like I think I said this to you, but every single day, in every single context, like every interaction, whatever you're doing, it's an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to grow, to learn, to be a better person, partner, performer.
mm,
Every single opportunity, you can connect better, you can have a better conversation, you can like, what are you doing with your life? If you're on your phone all day, is that adding value to your life? Like, and that's something that I ask myself sometimes, and I purposely put my screen time as a new widget on my iPhone because I look at it and like sometimes it gets high
mm,
and it makes me just say, is this adding value to your life? How are you spending your time? And um, if you're in a context where you feel like you maybe shouldn't be there, just say, is this adding value to where I want to go? And if it's not, don't put yourself in that situation. Like, no,
mm,
it's not good for you.
mm,
And do the things that are going to help you, like every day. Like, if you do all the small things every single day, they add up
mm,
enormously.
mm,
Um, but yeah, like I said, like you don't need to have this holy purpose and why to be successful or to get the most out of your day. It's simply your mindset and perspective on things. Like,
mm,
what do you see it as? Is that just is that just a coffee with someone to say how's work, how's your family, or is it a chance to connect better and to like get off your phone and have a meaningful conversation and
mm,
see how they really are?
mm,
Um,
mm.
so yeah, like I was talking about that framework, but just every day is an opportunity, every context is an opportunity, and sort of what you make of that is gonna push you further away or closer to where you want to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I guess maybe another way to put it would be, instead of having this constant need to have a purpose, is rather to
Yeah,
live on purpose, live purposefully each and every moment. And I guess a lot of people get caught in that mindset of, all right, once I have purpose, then I'll know what actions to take, and then I'll see the outcomes. But it's more like a circle, right? Like a circle with
Yeah.
arrows, and you have, action, purpose, outcomes. And it's not that one leads to the other, it's that they all tend to lead to one another. So if you're feeling those days, like you say, where, you just want to sit and binge on the phone and do absolutely nothing, like, guess what? No one is going to help you get out of that, and no purpose is going to
Yeah.
help you get out of it. You just got to take the action, and then
Yeah.
that'll lead to better actions, right? Better results.
Yeah. And I think like there's a difference between genuine rest and just doing nothing for no reason.
Mm.
Like, and I think that that's what most people do, but say they're resting. Like they just don't want to do something. But yeah, I'm not saying at all that you have to be go, 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 do everything every single day to feel like you're living a life.
Mm.
Just do things with intent, do things with
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah, that's
Um,
powerful. I like that word, intent. What do you mean by that? I guess like for someone who's sitting at
um,
home, maybe thinking about like, what is doing something with intent?
I'd say do it with 100% focus on it.
Mm.
Give your best to what you're doing,
Mm.
like whatever it is. Just give your focus to it. Give your full focus, your full intent.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like that's where success comes from. I'm reading a book at the moment called In Pursuit of Excellence, and the underpinning factor for every bit of success is focus. And I suppose that can be intertwined with intent. Um, and it's just simple things
Mm.
like how many times are you checking your phone when you're studying? How many times are you checking your phone at the gym? How many times are you checking your phone when you're out for coffee? Like, are you giving your full capacity to whatever you're doing?
Mm. Mm.
So, like, don't sort of be shocked if you're getting like not the results that you want, but that's what you're doing with your time. So
Yeah.
just give 100% to what you're doing,
Mm.
and then rest afterwards. So
Yeah, and that
yeah,
links so perfectly as well into that idea of extreme ownership, right? And taking responsibility and accountability for your decisions. Another
mm,
example would be, let's say you hop into bed with your partner and you both jump on your phones, and then 3 months later,
yeah,
your relationship is in turmoil and you're arguing and you're yelling at each other, like, and no one wants to take the accountability. It's like, think about that for a moment. You gave
yeah,
literally no intent to your relationship and you prioritize scrolling on social media over someone that you love. Of course, your relationship ended.
man, that's me. That was me literally a month ago. Like I'm always pretty good at like spotting where I'm not doing well, and I was just in a mode where I was going on my phone a little bit, and one day my partner was a little bit flat, and I was like, "You okay?" And she's like, "I just want to connect with you."
Mm.
I was like, "Fuck, I'm sorry." Like, wow, I
Yeah, yeah.
didn't know that that was like me scrolling my phone while she was there looking at me,
Mm.
just wanting to connect in a moment that I felt like wasn't of significance. She seen it as a moment to connect. So like, think about like, is it just you going to sleep? Is it a chance to roll over and have a talk?
Mm. Mm.
Spend some quality time with whoever you're with and
Mm.
connect.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, like it's crazy. I reckon like
Yeah, and it,
how
it it
easy
ties
it
in
is.
it ties in so perfectly with what you said before, this word intent, and that is essentially living on purpose. And I guess you could call it being present. There's so many, hype words that we could call it, right? But it's
Yeah,
just literally living in that moment that you're in. Like, if you plan to go and have coffee with a friend that you haven't seen in a year, and you sit down there and you get a couple of lattes, shameless plug, and and
have to.
the first thing you do is whip open your phone and put your attention on an email that, in the grand scheme of things, really doesn't matter if you reply to even the following day. That's not living on purpose. And the same goes for this idea of rest that you spoke about before. Like, of course you can rest, but if you're going to rest, but then the moment you rest, you're going to start thinking about all of these things that aren't now, they're just happening in the future, instead of actually maybe just lying on the grass and staring at the clouds and allowing your body to rest, you're not going to feel rested.
Yeah, legit. You'll go on your phone and scroll, but you won't feel rested. Like, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's crazy, but focus, intent, presence, grounded, all of them, same thing. Be 100% wherever you are.
I think the other one I wanted to get your perspective on as well is going back to this victim mentality, right? Is another thing that I think trips people up is this. It ties in with external validation, right? Because the world right now, if you were to classify the world as what's going on in Twitter and Facebook, which by the way it's not, the world actually doesn't care about anything that's going on Facebook and Twitter. It's still hurtling through the cosmos at a bazillion miles an hour around a giant fiery ball. It really doesn't care about Twitter or Facebook, and it definitely doesn't have an account. But anyway,
Rant.
Yeah. Hey, this is the world. But people almost feel like this need to become a victim, even though they're not. Like their life is amazing. They live in a beautiful apartment. They have bathrooms. They have hot showers. They have food in their belly, and they still feel this need to become a victim because they're so externally validated by the world. And the world right now is just flooded with people who want to feel as if they're the victim. That like they're the ones with all the problems. How do you kind of overcome that?
I think that genuinely comes from the culture we live in, and for a lot of people it's a scarcity culture. It's like this culture of never enough.
Love that.
Like you said, these people are living great lives. They've got food, they've got hot water, we've got heaps of things to be grateful for, but are you grateful for where you're at? Like, people are on this hamster wheel of just wanting more because they think that that's what's going to define their happiness, like a bigger house, a bigger car. And like, yeah, they're nice things to have. And if you're in a situation where it's like you can get it, go for it. Like, I don't care. I'm not saying you need to have this small economy efficient little car to be happy. I'm just saying that be grateful for where you are. Because it's like these things. We see like social media, and these people are living these glorified lives. It's like, and we glorify how people live and what people look like, and you think that you have to be that when you don't. Like, and it's such a trap because people just and I feel like never enough is like feeling shame. Like, that's like genuinely one of the definitions of shame. It's like feeling less than or never enough. It's like, why are you ashamed of what you've got? Like, why do you feel shame for that? Why do you feel like you need more to be happy? Like, why can't you be happy now? You don't have to buy a new house to be happy. But yeah, people just get stuck in it, and it's so disappointing to see. But I think, like, in terms of how to get out of it, I'll probably say gratitude is one, and you don't have to be what you think others think you should be. Like, you should be exactly where you are and be happy with that. Like, yeah, but I think gratitude is one of the biggest things for me in terms of getting out of that never enough. Like, and that's just made me think it's shifting. Like, if you think about what you don't have, you're never going to have enough. If you think about what you do have, you're going to live such a more happy life. So it's genuinely, it's come back to mindset again. Shift your focus on what you do have. Like, what is awesome in your life right now? What are you grateful for? Versus focusing on those things that we don't have. And that's where that scarcity culture comes in. And when we think never enough and we think we need more, and yeah, it's a bit of a rabbit hole. I'd try to say gratitude, not be grateful. Do some gratitude. List 3 things you're grateful for. But yeah.
Yeah, a few things kind of come to mind there, and I harp on about this all the time on the podcast. It's essentially what you're describing there in terms of this material need to keep getting more and more and more is what I've learned is the hedonic treadmill, right? You know, this version of hedonic happiness, which isn't really hedonic happiness, is this need to constantly be satisfied by some sort of material goal. But the problem is, once you get to that material goal, is you actually haven't satisfied the overwhelming feeling and need that you have inside of you, which is probably something way deeper, like love or joy or connection,
Mm.
or meaning or purpose or intent. And so you just constantly end up running on this treadmill that just literally has no time limit on it. And you're just chasing
Yeah.
and chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. And it just doesn't sound like a very nice way to live your life. And you know, like I've worked hospo for many years, and I'd work in clubs. Obviously, I won't mention any names, but I would see people with unbelievable amounts of money and unbelievable amounts of material assets, and I would see them in just such dark places. And I knew, and I felt empathetic to these people because I understood that for a lot of them, they were, regardless of how much they had materially, they were stuck on this hedonic treadmill. And each
Yeah.
weekend, they were just trying to reach what they could only ever reach by sitting down and asking themselves, like, what is it you really want? Like, remove all of
Mm.
this material crap and like, what is it you
Yeah.
really want to feel? Like, how do you want to be? How do you want to exist? And a lot of the times, it's such simple things like, I just want to feel like I have enough. Okay, well, guess what? Make the decision to realize that you have enough, and that can start with gratitude and this flip
Yeah.
from this scarcity mindset to this abundance mindset.
Yeah. I think that makes me think of a couple of things. One, it's like when we feel like the need to keep buying things, like what's the underlying problem, maybe?
Mm,
Like, what have you gone through to feel like you need to be more than what
mm,
you are? There's a lot of time with people, like the underlying issues are related to their upbringing and like the way they've been conditioned to think, feel, what their relationship was like with their family, their mum, their dad. Did they get enough love? I know for me, like I didn't have a great relationship with my mother, and that really translates into relationships for me.
mm,
Um, like I need affirmation because I didn't get that from my mum when I was young. Um, Second thing is minimalists. Less is more. I love minimalists. If you
mm,
haven't watched a documentary on Netflix, I would say watch it. I think it's
mm.
just called Minimalism or Minimalists.
I'll put that in the show
Um,
notes.
and like, I'm not saying you have to live out of one bag, but you don't need all these things. And that's basically what they're saying. Like, you don't need to have one T-shirt. You can have as many as you want, but you don't need it.
Mm,
Like, you need what do you need? What you're going to buy, and is that going to add value to your life?
mm,
Um, and then the other one was, I read this paper, and it was about sociology, and it basically just talked about the quality of your well-being is dictated by the quality of your relationships and your ability to feel connected, not by the material assets that you own.
mm,
Um, so when we shift from I need this new iPhone 12 to make me feel happy, or this better car, like maybe you need better relationships with the people around you, and you don't need thousands of friends. You don't need to go and be popular in every circle. You need a close knit of people that you feel massively connected to,
mm,
and that will deem the quality of your well-being.
mm. Yeah, I think one thing that comes into mind just thinking then about what you said is another really good thing to do is like when you, like, let's say, for example, you go, oh, I really need to buy that new, uh, I don't know, that new Lamborghini. Let's say, let's get ridiculous. Sit there and ask yourself, like, why? Why do you think you need to buy
Mm,
that Lamborghini? Is it the Lamborghini that you need, or is it something deeper than that? And quite often it's going to be something deeper than that. And if you find after all of that kind of self-introspection, I guess, that, okay, this Lamborghini truly will give you what it is that you feel you need to be fulfilled, then great, buy the Lamborghini. But you're probably going to find, like you said, that it's something much deeper than that. It's maybe what you're needing is to feel some sort of connection. And that kind of feeling is not going to happen by buying that Lamborghini. It's going to happen by making a choice to create that connection.
Yeah.
It comes down to choice, right?
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is have better relationships with people and you'll save yourself a few $100,000.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's funny, right? Like that idea of scarcity. I can't remember where I've seen this quote, but it's scarcity is an invention of the rich. And it really is that. Like, before we had all of this that's around us, these buildings and these cars and this technology and this crazy, amazing world that we've managed to create with our collective intelligence, there wasn't really such a thing as scarcity. The only time scarcity existed is when you were like, holy crap, I'm really hungry. Guys, you want to go hunting? You guys want to go, like, you guys want to go kill a woolly mammoth? Like, it's going to be pretty dangerous, but like, I'm pretty hungry. Apart from that, it was just, we just lived humbly in this connection with this gigantic ecosystem that is the world hurtling through space at 1 billion miles an hour. Now it's just, we've created all of the scarcity from having so much. It's a weird paradox, right?
Yeah. Like, it's gone from like being connected to everything around you because you haven't got all these things to be disconnected. And over time, we've just become so much more disconnected. So much like now we become a product of our environment. We live in a scarcity culture. Like, it's going to be easy to feel like you don't have enough if you're driving around on the road. You see these fly cars, you see these massive buildings, you see people with heaps of money. Like, of course, you feel like you're going to have to do that, but you don't. If we go back to where we came from, then we're connected to each other, to nature, and the only time you felt scarcity is when you're bloody starving.
Exactly. Hey, there's a great kind of tip that was hidden in that last sentence you said. Maybe next time you feel like you need to buy a Lamborghini, or let's make it more realistic for the majority of people, that new iPhone, maybe just go for a walk in nature and see if that does the trick. Maybe that'll give the connection you need, or maybe go sit down and have a coffee with your phone hidden away below your chair with a friend and actually have a connection. And then I think you'll be surprised, and you'll realize that all of those thoughts of you needing that iPhone or that new Lamborghini just completely disappear, because you've fulfilled yourself, you filled your cup by creating that connection.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Cool, bro. Man, this conversation has gone completely in a totally different direction to where I thought it was, but that tends to happen in all of these podcasts. But I loved it.
We just get on the wheel and just keep running.
That's it, man. But I think what we covered was really important, and I actually erased the title that I thought I was going to have, and I've just changed it to like intent minimalism and the victim mentality, because it's kind of what we just talked about, which is not what we intended to, but
helps.
It's good, man.
It is what it is. Hey, they're the best though. They're the best conversations, like you said. They don't have to be structured. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to lead where your mind is going, and have a bit of curiosity about what you're talking about. And that's why I love Hey Mate, because they're just like, even though we've got questions in place, I'm talking about Tuesdays, the conversations just go everywhere. And like, Gabe and I don't care if you don't follow the questions. Like, go have a conversation and connect. All we're seeking is connection. So
100%.
Yeah.
Well, bro, like I've really enjoyed this. I think we're going to move into the 4-in-1, which I talked to you about before this. But I just wanted to acknowledge this conversation first of all. Say thank you very much for sharing everything you did share during that conversation. I know that it's always challenging to share those kind of tough points, I guess, you faced in your life. And also, like, I'm pretty excited because this is like I said at the start, I feel like this is another step towards like growing a relationship, you know, and the next conversation we have will build upon this, and then the next one,
Yeah,
and yeah, hopefully we'll be sitting around a campfire outside of a 25-kilometer bubble eventually.
man,
Chatting deep.
that'd be elite. I feel like we've got so much more to talk about.
Mm.
And that's like the good thing about quality conversations. You feel like you can talk about more.
Mm.
So yeah, I can't wait for our conversations
Yeah,
to
man.
keep moving forward.
100%. Cool. All right, you ready for the 4-in-1?
Yeah. Is that
Did you
the question I actually?
So I get 4 for you
Ah,
because it's my
yep.
podcast
Okay.
and I'm being selfish.
Yeah.
And, and you get 1 for me.
Okay.
Okay, so
Cool.
I'll start with number 1 for you. Easy one.
Okay.
Number 1 book recommendation.
Tuesdays with Maury.
Say it again.
It's Tuesdays with Maury.
With Murray.
One of the best books. It's a true story. Elite book. Unbelievable. It's sort of old now, but huge. Great story. And then you can look further into it and look about the story behind it.
What's it about?
Yeah. So Tuesdays with Maury. Maury Schwartz is this professor in sociology. And he's realized he's got amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or you might know it as Stephen Hawking disease.
Yeah.
Or Lou Gehrig's disease, sorry. But Stephen Hawking is probably the most renowned for it. And it's a motor neuron disease. And he has a student, and this student sees Maury on TV, and it talks about him dying, and because it's a progressive death. You lose control over your body. And yeah, this student was like one of Maury's favorite students. Maury was his favorite teacher, and he decided like that he would go and spend every Tuesday with him for the rest of his life. And this guy is a journalist, and he's sort of feeling disconnected, and he's not living a great life, and he got away from where he was at when he was really close with Maury. And ultimately they spend every Tuesday together, and Maury imparts life lessons on him. And yeah, like it makes me sad thinking about it, because like it's a powerful book. Like made me cry at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm not much I reckon I've cried twice when reading books. But one of the best books you could ever read.
Yeah.
Like absolutely, it's for anyone. Like it's basically a story. So if you like fiction, fine. Self-help, motivation, all of the above.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to add that to my list for sure. And yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. That sounds super powerful. I'm feeling tingles and that kind of overwhelming sadness now. It's so good to get that perspective though, right? Like to be around the lessons that you learn through death, I guess you could say it is. And like we're all so scared of death, but it's so inherently part of life and living.
Yeah.
And it's good to get exposed to that. And I think that's going to be a powerful book. I'm excited to read that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, bro. Next one for you. What has had the greatest impact on your life in the past 12 months?
Greatest impact on my life in the past 12 months. Wow, that's a tough one. I'll probably say perspective. If that's an answer, has been helping me make informed decisions. Probably say my perspective. Yeah, I don't know if you're looking for something external there, but I'd probably say my own mind or books. I'd probably say education. Yeah, right. Easily education. Sorry. Yeah.
You don't need to be sorry, bro.
That's where I get my perspective from is from the books I read.
Yeah, right.
And all the things I learn is basically from the books I read. So I'd say education.
Nice. I think that's something that a lot of us kind of take for granted, you know, especially in the system that we live in. It's like, all right, you go to school, you go to university, and then once you're done at university, that's it. That's all of your learning done. You know everything that you need to know in the world. And then a lot of people will get to, you know, their mid-40s and bang, midlife crisis, and they realize that they actually know absolutely nothing. Regardless of how much you learn, you still know nothing. But when you get into this kind of mindset of, okay, keep learning, keep learning, keep learning, keep challenging my ideas, keep reading stuff that I wouldn't normally read, and then you find that you become so much more comfortable with the fact that you know nothing, and you just want to learn more.
It's like people think university is the peak of the mountain, like the peak of the mountain, the peak of the climb. It's not even the first hill. Like it's a continual learning process, and that's one of the biggest things that I love. Just learning, just trying to find ways to be better every day.
Awesome. So, love that, Jordan. Okay, so next one for you, your greatest mentor.
My greatest mentor. That's a really tough one. I wouldn't say I have one of my teachers from high school. Her name's Kerry, and she is like a mum to me. She took me in one of my darkest times and gives me the hard answers when I don't want to hear them, even though I always want honesty, and just guides me through life when I'm in tough places and when I need feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah, easily.
Shout out to, is it Kerry?
Yeah, Kerry.
Shout out to Kerry. Is she going to be listening to this?
Yeah, she'll listen.
Awesome. That's awesome. It's so good to share this kind of stuff. It's weird that we don't congratulate and acknowledge people more. It's only when people are dead that we stand at their funeral and acknowledge them. And I'm forcing myself now. Like the other day, I had a couple beers with some of my managers at work, and it was so good to be with them again, because we hadn't seen each other in so long. And I just literally sent a message afterwards and told them afterwards, I was like, this was amazing. You're all beautiful people. You're amazing. And I could tell it's a little bit weird for a lot of people because we're not used to that. But I feel personally, it's so important to acknowledge people when they're alive, because when they're dead, they ain't going to be hearing it. So what's the point?
I know, like those sorts of things need to be normalized more. Like, just call someone up and say, I'm so grateful for you and for you being like this. Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. Cool, bro. Last one's a totally random one, but I'm really keen to hear your answer to this. Okay. How many chickens would it take to kill an elephant? This is deep, bro.
So deep. I'd say depends on the size and the ferocity of the chicken. Is he 100% on task?
Are they focused?
Yeah, are they focused or what? Yeah. No, but legitimately, we're thinking seriously. I'd say it has to be at least 200.
I reckon that would be too little.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, it's probably going to have to be more. Now I think it's just done. So yeah.
Just exploding. Imagine that scenario. A bunch of chickens just trying to peck away at its legs, and this elephant just exploding chickens all over.
You get a time lapse of this elephant's legs just withering away. That's probably too graphic for some listeners. Sorry.
That's all right. I mean, it's reality. It's probably what would happen. Yeah. Well, cool. Anyway, bro, on that note, you got a question for me, so just fire away.
I was gonna ask you a funny one, but I switched my mind on when I was on my walk this morning.
Nice.
It's probably, what's your biggest fear? What are you most afraid of?
Oh, I think I remember this being in a chat once on Hamad actually, and I didn't answer it because we got on one of those tangents and just never actually got around to answering it.
Yeah.
My biggest fear. That's tough. I think my biggest fear really is success, like being successful. And I need to overcome that every single day, because it's kind of, I guess the way I make it in my head is like, there's this wall in front of my face, and I can either allow that wall to stay there and just keep banging my head against it, and falling back into old crappy habits that allow me to be comfortable, or I can take that fear and I can put it behind me and it becomes a spinning blade of death. And if I fall back, I'm totally fucked. So I guess that fear of success, I've flipped it on its head and turned it into a fear of failure, if that makes sense. So the biggest fear is, I guess, this continuous fear of success, which I overcome by making that fear of failure, because I don't want to fall back into those feelings of being in a suffering state and being the victim anymore. Like I'm done with that. It's kind of like what you were saying earlier, like enough is enough. So I guess fear for me is just, it's become excitement almost. Like I convince myself now when I feel that, I'm like, oh, this is exciting. I've got butterflies in my stomach. I'm terrified. This is exciting, which is what I used to do with all the extreme sports I did. So it's like, why can't I just do that with my mind?
I feel like that's just like anxiety and stress isn't always bad. No. Sometimes it's good. You need it. Like,
it's telling you something.
Yeah. So, that's a great response.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, bro, I think that's pretty much the end. Anything that you talked about, I'll put it in the show notes for anyone listening. But I guess before you disappear, you are by trade a strength and conditioning coach, but you also do obviously plenty of other stuff, and you work a lot on mindset. From this conversation, I can tell it's the mental game is just as important to you. So for anyone who wants to get in contact, maybe they want to do some strength and conditioning, or maybe they just want to spark up a conversation, where can they find you?
I've got 2 Instagrams, one for my coach, like strength and conditioning, and then on my normal one, I talk a little bit about mental health and stuff like that. So my normal Instagram is just _Jordan Love, and my strength and conditioning one is Coach Jordan Love. So
gotcha.
Pretty easy. They're the only 2 platforms that I really go on. Or if you want to have a pretty deep conversation, sign up for Hey Mate and have a chin wag.
Sweet.
Plug.
Shameless plug. Cool. So I'll put all of those in the show notes. Just so people are kind of aware, you would have listened to at this stage when this podcast came out, the podcast I did with Gabe. Hey Mate is a space for men. So if there's any female listeners out there who want to get in contact with Jordan, hit him up on _Jordan Love or the strength and conditioning coaching. Hey Mate is a men's space. So it would be kind of awkward if someone jumped on and then discovered that. Yeah.
And on that, like, some people might feel like a little bit anxious to reach out and message me about things. But after the mental health videos I put up, I get like so many people I don't know, I've never met, just come into my DMs and just say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Like, and we have some unbelievable chats and just connect. So please, like Jack said, reach out to me if you feel like you want to have a conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jordan.
No, thank you, my friend.
Hello again, friend. Thanks for listening to the entirety of that episode. I truly appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, please subscribe on whatever platform you're using. And if you're using Apple Podcasts, huge favor to ask you, can you please leave a 5-star rating, leave a comment, leave a review, and be sure to share this with anyone in your life that you think it'll impact positively. Each and every rating and review that we get on Apple Podcasts helps beat the algorithm and get the podcast out to more people. And I think these conversations are worth sharing. So thanks once again, and we'll see you in the next episode of Couple of Lattes.